Good morning. Thank you for taking the time to join us for our first webinar in the series on VMware alternatives. We are hosting today's webinar with our partner HPE. At today's webinar, Liam Glennie, VM Essentials Specialist, will discuss how the HPE Morpheus VM Essentials platform can help you break free from VMware vendor lock-in. He'll also provide a demonstration on how Morpheus delivers fast deployment, automated provisioning, and seamless VM migration, all while managing KVM and VMware VMs from a single interface. Joining Liam is Ryan Young, Vandis' CTO, who will assist with questions. Before we get started, we'd like to remind everyone that this webinar is being recorded. If you have questions during the presentation, please type them in the Q&A window and we'll address them as we go or at the end of the session. We also have a polling question today that we hope you will take part in. A quick reminder also to visit our website, vandis.com/events, for a list of other events you might be interested in. For those of you who are new to Vandis, Vandis specializes in optimizing and securing hybrid network infrastructures to achieve maximum value for our clients. With our proven process anchored by our deep industry knowledge, we deliver solutions and successful outcomes which cultivate strong connections and trust with our customers. For over 40 years, Vandis has delivered comprehensive strategies for secure IT infrastructures. We have partnered with HPE to offer our customers alternatives to VMware that can help reduce costs and simplify hybrid IT. And now it's my pleasure to turn it over to Liam.
Hey, thank you very much. Sorry about that. I skipped a slide there. Trying to unmute myself. I'm Liam Glennie. I'm the VME specialist. So I get to talk about VME all day, every day. Super happy to be here. Hopefully get you everything you need and are curious about. As probably most of you know, when you're launching a new product like this, it's hard to get all the info out there that you need to understand fully what we're doing, and we're doing a lot. So everything from the HVM Morpheus hypervisor itself, which is HPE's own hypervisor that we have today, to the ability to manage your VMware sockets, Nutanix sockets. We want to be a full replacement for your virtualization platform. So it's great to be here. And I think questions can go in the chat, right? So we'll definitely be sure to cover those, but I want to make sure that we get as many questions answered as possible. I'll jump into a little bit of history on the product. So ESXi beta tested in 98 and really got going in 2001. It's been a flagship product for the last 20 years. The history on what underlies our technology is the Ubuntu OS. So also pretty tried and true. It's what you're going to, it's probably the most popular, stable. They call it the OS of the cloud for a reason. We built our KVM virtualization stack on top of it. So pretty similar to Proxmox, probably our most analogous product out there in terms of the underlying tech. But it's you've got your pretty standard, the actual KVM technology, quick emulation, libvirt on the API side of things, OVS and pacemaker. OVS does networking. Pacemaker is going to allow for high availability and some DRS. So what happened is actually pretty interesting. Morpheus was acquired about this time last year. HPE had plans to launch their own hypervisor, and they popped the hood on the Morpheus platform, which is its own enterprise size SKU. And they said, wow, you have this hypervisor. What's this? And Jeff and Brian Wheeler, the two co-founders, or brothers actually, co-founders of Morpheus Data, had been working on a little passion project for about 7 years of the 10 years that they'd been really in production with their product. So the hypervisor, all that to say, is not new. It's new to market, but the tech has been there for a long time, and I think that's why it's so mature, and it's really for 90+% of VMware customers, it's what you need today. And it's got the enterprise support. So that's something that when you look at the enterprise market or just the hypervisor market for almost any shop, you've got obviously VMware, Hyper-V, Nutanix, Proxmox has been more of a lab solution, but people really like it. And you've got more open source routes like Zen, XCP. So it's not a huge market. There hasn't been a lot of innovation. So when HPE acquired Morpheus Data in August of 2024, they saw the hypervisor, we accelerated the timeline. It just made sense. And it also it made sense because the recent Broadcom acquisition of VMware has brought on a lot of price increases. We say 2 to 4. I talk to customers every single day. I've seen as high as 11x. I mean, it seems arbitrary at times. I know for those who have relied on discounts the most, schools, nonprofits, a lot of those shops got hit really hard because they had special discounting that went away. But even if you were lucky and you had some consistency, it was still going up 2 to 4x. So there, not just that, but I would say I've heard across the board that a lot of the support has taken a hit. The product's getting more complicated. People are getting forced into the VCF SKU. And the Virtual Cloud Foundation SKU, while very capable, is also very expensive. It's priced per core, which is a far cry from how we're doing our pricing right now. Something I like to tout early and often, that this is a per socket licensed product. So you're paying per socket per year, and it's all included. You get all the support you need, all the updates. People ask about the Ubuntu side. Yes, there's Ubuntu support included as well. The side of this, I think, for customers too, that's been really tricky is getting a quote, and just figuring out what the price is going to be. So I talk every day about where the rubber meets the road, which is, I think, the timeline. If you don't want to make this massive jump under the gun. Gartner, Forrester were very they were very loud early on in the acquisition that for many the migration was going to cost more than just biting the bullet. And we call it paying the ransom on VMware, and now that's becoming less and less true. So we do have a migration solution today. There's a live migration option. There is a migration option that would require some maintenance windows, but it is included in the platform. It's all GUI driven. So I think a lot there in the migration world that's changing. Our the pitch here, I think, is it's multifaceted. It's not just, hey, reduce costs, which you're certainly going to do. The list price per socket is around $600 um, per physical CPU socket per year, and that's a 1, 3, and 5 year contract. Um, I think the other part of this is that you can manage your VMware environment. That part of it, I think, gets overlooked. But in a transitory period where you're moving from one hypervisor to the other, there's going to be a multi-hypervisor environment in your future. It's just going to happen, and a lot of platforms aren't built for that. That's not of interest to them. They don't really care, and I think that's where we really shine as a product, is the ease of use and the fact that we thought about the end user. And that's why you can manage VMware sockets. And we'll get into that in the demo, what that looks like. Um, there is also very flexible pricing all around the board with HPE. There's GreenLake, which is its own kind of financial vehicle to basically do things as OpEx. But there's also the private cloud business edition that you can look at. There's a lot of hardware that you can look at that accompanies VM Essentials very well. But this is also a standalone product. So we're pretty unlike Nutanix in that we're not dying to, lock you into some hyper-converged solution. In fact, I think probably the most popular product right now is sort of the antidote to the VxRail and the hyper-converged boxes that have caused people a lot of pain. So we have an ecosystem. We want you to be a part of it, obviously. In fact, I think people ask me, well, what if this hypervisor, when are you guys going to go per core pricing? Well, we have no plans to. I think it is I think it is just totally against the business philosophy here because HPE loves selling storage arrays. We love selling servers, obviously, ProLiant. Um, that's really the bread and butter of the company. And I think we see this as a way to say to customers, hey, we're the biggest VMware reseller on earth. We want to offer you another alternative. We have thousands of SKUs. We're not just a hypervisor company. That's kind of the last thing that we are in terms of you look at all the products that we've introduced. Whereas VMware, Nutanix, Proxmox, they're hypervisor first, and that's where they're making their money. So yeah, this is certainly lower risk, I think, in a lot of ways. Um, Part of that is support, part of it is the future business ambitions. But we have 24/7 support as well. We have that for this product. We have a VME specific team for this product. There's no limit as to the amount of support you can get. There's no separate contract for that. So that is all bundled into the SKU. And the support's fantastic. I mean, it's 24/7. There's a phone number for them. You can also open a case in a portal. You can get one-on-one time with an engineer. You could do email back and forth. So there's a lot of options. Getting into some of the capabilities, and I know this says enterprise grade. Most customers aren't enterprise grade, and that's completely fine. So yes, this is enterprise grade when it needs to be. But I think really who this product is great for today are those that, might have a couple dozen VMs, might have a couple hundred, but they're looking for a meat and potato solution. Let's do some high availability vMotion. I want some DRS load balancing. It's like, we're here for that today. So we've got a pretty robust list. We've got a lot of automation. That's, I think, something that will surprise a lot of people. This product that we're working off of VM Essentials is actually using the GUI from Morpheus. It's just mission optimized for on-prem management. We're not messing around with AWS, Azure, GCP. That's what the full enterprise SKU does. Most customers don't need that. So you've got the high availability, meaning if a host goes down within a cluster, those workloads automatically are moving to the two surviving hosts or however many you have in your cluster, and they're being automatically placed. So we get questions about DRS all the time. Hey, how does it compare to VMware? Well, VMware gives you a little bit of manual operation where you can set the dynamic resource scheduling to 1 or to 5. And we're an on-rails product in general. We just put it at 3. So that's really the best way I can put it. The workloads are going to move to maximize efficiency, but they're not going to be flying around. Uh, they're not going to move at a point of criticality as if they were on 1. Live host and storage migration is also here today. So and we can look at that through the UI, but you can hot swap external, you can resize storage, you can move a VM and swap data stores for a specific VM or host. So that's all there. We've got very flexible storage options supporting both paths. So Fiber Channel, iSCSI, and then everything under the sun in terms of buckets, file shares. If you're going to go GFS2, NFS, that's all here today. Yeah, GFS2, there's some requirement in terms of a host count, something to keep in mind there. Those are limitations of GFS. And if you were to want to do something like Ceph, which is its own headache, most people don't want to do that. Then you're looking at some minimums in terms of you got to have 3 sockets in the case of a split brain scenario. But those are kind of edge cases. The embedded HPE private cloud side of this is interesting for some customers. For a lot of people that are looking to save money, I say let's just look at VME standalone, and if it lines up that you want to look at hardware, great. But usually my job, I'm not a hardware guy. I don't sell other stuff. It's just VME. So that's the question for me is how can we get you off VMware? Is that tenable? What does the migration path look like? There is a lot of options in terms of the private cloud business edition, which is like a 3-2-1 setup, 3 hosts, 2 routers, 1 MSA, and you're able to have this, what we call a disaggregated hyperconverged infrastructure. So you're able to scale those components separate from one another, as opposed to being, if you want to scale your VxRail up, you got to buy another box. There is also an upgrade path to Morpheus Enterprise, which I'd mentioned before. And if we get more questions on that, we can look at the differences. But we make it very easy to go from VM Essentials to, if you say, Liam, I want the Terraform, Ansible, I need the Kubernetes management, I have a large AWS, GCP, Azure footprint. I want to plug in and I want to do that whole self-service catalog thing. Great, we can talk about that, and it's swapping out a license key. So pretty big price difference, but the value difference is huge as well. So if you need it, there's a lot there. And we do have today a way to do microsegmentation with what's called a CX-10000. That's a data processing unit on the Aruba side of the house. So it's a physical switch. Um, and we also have a unified installer today too, which makes the whole installation process a lot more convenient than it's been in earlier versions if you've been kicking the tires on it. A lot is changing with this product. We're moving at a breakneck speed. So we're not having the issue of, oh, we've been waiting on a feature. I mean, the issue is we're getting so many features, and people are saying, when are we going to do quarter releases, which is January is when we're planning to do that. So we're getting, I mean, we've got the migration tool in the last few months, got the change block tracking this last release, looking at probably a Veeam beta integration. I'm probably spilling the beans on that, but we're looking at that in the very near future with some of the upcoming releases. So that's going to be big. Uh, what's coming next? We actually just released Affinity, Anti-Affinity as well. So hard to keep the presentations up to date, but that's there today. Uh, Stretched storage clustering, that's very big. That is something that we're working on. We've heard the people on that, especially in Europe, that's huge actually. So it's a big thing for the global team. And ISV in general is something we're always working to expand. I mean, I think the foundational technology has been expedited massively, both by the fact that Brian and Jeff Wheeler had been working on it years prior, but also just the amount of resources that HPE is putting into this hypervisor. Um, the biggest thing is getting other software vendors to come on and certify. So that's something we're actively working on. If you have questions about that, we can certainly address those on a case by case. Advanced migration looks like Zerto. I think people are always asking me Veeam and Zerto, when are those here? They're public enemy number one and two in terms of supporting, different software. So it's the talk of the town, both with the customers and on the internal side. Um, we are full steam ahead with Veeam. I think I can speak maybe to the fact that we're, like I said, doing beta testing very soon here with select customers. Um, the I would say the Zerto piece is a little bit further off, but we're looking at Q1 calendar probably to have a migration capability that would allow you to do live migrations. Live migrations are sort of a misnomer. You're going to have some downtime, but it's seconds and minutes as opposed to dozens of minutes and maybe hours, depending on the size of a VM. So that's more agent-based, bit by bit replication, and then you're flipping a switch. That exists today for Zerto. Zerto has SKUs from Hyper-V to VMware all day, among others, but we're currently building out a KVM solution. That's something else to be aware of, is that this is a KVM-based hypervisor. So our native image format is a QCOW2, and it really opens up world possibilities. VMDK is the proprietary format to VMware. So by getting, your images over to QCOW2, I think it actually offers a lot of flexibility. Disaster recovery, right down the line with Zerto. That's the other component of Zerto. It might even be here a bit before the migration component. Disaster recovery is something that I mean, we own the Zerto product. Um, so yeah, I know Zerto reps, and they're ecstatic about it. So we're going to be supporting those QCOW2 images as VMs for just the basic DR functionality that Zerto has been offering for years. Um, Looking at some more product comparison. Um, I think the biggest thing here between the two, it's just two SKUs. So I mean, it gets a little bit complicated, but it's really the difference between having a self-service catalog where you can almost replace a system admin in a true enterprise environment where people can do um, you can say, hey, I'm going to create a role, I'm going to assign a person a role. There's also multi-tenancy with Morpheus Enterprise, which is very unique. So if you're an MSP, you can manage multiple clients. The way I would put it is this: when Morpheus initially got started, it was actually born out of necessity in the private equity world, where this private equity company the brothers were working with, they were acquiring companies. They had very different tech stacks for each, and they were looking for a way to homogenize the tech stacks. And so they created a way to take your on-prem resources and like bundle them all together, which was novel and cool at the time, and then do the same with the cloud. And that really opened it up to being a valuable product, not just to the private equity firms, but to other larger corporations that were dealing with acquisitions or just folks who had a lot of everything and wanted to manage it. But if that's not what you have, then it's really usually not worth the price increase. For the VM Essentials Manager on the left here, you've got $600 list price per socket per year. The Morpheus Enterprise is more like $2,500. There's an upgrade SKU that's $1,900 between the two. And I really wouldn't recommend trying to do both. It's kind of one or the other, just because if you do the Morpheus Enterprise and you don't upgrade all of your VM Essentials sockets, if you will, then you've got two different dashboards, which I think kind of defeats the purpose. Um, but you get a lot in terms of integrations. I mean, we're talking about ServiceNow, Datadog, everything under the sun. We have some IPAM DNS already, but everything is turned up to 11 on the Morpheus Enterprise side, and you have a very robust automation engine. Um, but it's very much built for those that really are dealing with sprawl, cloud sprawl, and on-prem resource sprawl. So if you're managing Nutanix sockets and you've got VMware sockets and you've got maybe some Proxmox and you want to see it all under one roof. But to be honest, it's a rare customer when you look at the market that's currently being left behind by VMware. VMware has a customer list of about 300,000 long, and they're saying we want to really just work directly with the top 2,500. So hopefully, if we have more questions, there are more slides I can get to that kind of spell out the differences. That's really all I have on the presentation side. I don't know, Ryan, if we want to run into some questions real quick before the demo, I can jump right into the demo as well.
Yeah, so I definitely have we have the poll on screen. So if everyone could take a moment and just check off the poll, kind of helps us in terms of the demo side to understand where everyone's at in their VMware journey today, and kind of where the features align. And while they're filling that out, so Liam, we do have a question from the Q&A, and I know that you are a sales specialist, so you might not have the deep down dirty technicals of it. So to the user who asked the question, we might need to follow up with you afterwards. But the question is, they are looking to roll VME out on their SimpliVity system, and what does that process look like for them? I'm assuming that's a migration going from SimpliVity with VMware to SimpliVity with VME.
Yeah. So I know it can be done. We do it with PCB. I'm just pinging an engineering team, so maybe I can get an answer by the end of the call. This is a good question. It's a little bit newer. SimpliVity now supports VME, so there is certainly a way to do it. I know, so that's a yes. But the exact manner in which you're going to roll it out, it could honestly be similar to how you would do it with a non-hyperconverged, where you're going to move a portion of your workloads over to a node and then sort of isolate part of the box and then convert that. Like that's how we do it with a 3 node. You take a node down, drain it, move the workloads over, stand it up as a HVM host, and then pull workloads into it. So I think there's a way to do that with SimpliVity so that you're not running into downtime and maybe don't need other hardware would be the goal there. But more to come. We'll see if my guy gets back to me. But this is a month old that SimpliVity is now supported. So it's a great question. Timely. Certainly, if you want to get a new SimpliVity box, we can print VME on it easy. But the brownfield to VME is something I will get back to you guys on.
Okay, awesome. So one other question. And we will let's discuss the poll results in a second, but so cost management has come up a couple times throughout here, and I believe that's really where Morpheus was really in its foundational roots. So for customers who are leveraging Morpheus Enterprise, can you talk a little bit about the value that Morpheus Enterprise brings when you integrate public cloud and Morpheus?
Yeah, I can. And I actually have a comparison slide I might jump to. I got it pulled up. I just think that I'm a visual learner. Who isn't, right? So let's take a peek at this. Just because I think this will give you, there's so many capabilities, but what you can do is, I think everything in blue, by the way, is Morpheus Enterprise. Everything in purple is HVM VME. So what you can do with, I think the reporting analytics, there's a lot of value there for people looking to control their cloud spend. And you can set limits. There's some right sizing guidance as well, but you're gonna have the ability to say, for X user, and this is how they kind of say we cut down on shadow IT. They get this much of a resource, but they actually make it more straightforward for that person to go provision that resource themselves instead of having to hit up a system admin essentially. So the claim to fame there is weeks to minutes in terms of actually provisioning, and then just keeping really robust track of every cloud environment that you have among AWS, Azure, GCP, and setting limits around that so that people aren't overusing and spending more money than they're supposed to on any given public cloud.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's a big part of it. Go ahead, Ryan.
So let's, not that we're picking on VMware today, but I guess we are. So VMware today has public cloud offerings where you can run, VMware in Azure, VMware in AWS. The Morpheus Enterprise, is that running VME in Azure, or is Morpheus Enterprise managing public clouds directly?
Morpheus is running. So I get, that's an interesting question. So they're saying that
you don't have to run a VME cluster in Azure, right?
No.
Right.
A VME cluster is on-prem. So it's and by the way, the GUI looks like cloud. It's all on-prem. It's a VM that's running within your environment. You get a console into it and everything.
All right. So let's go look at the features that people are running. So 100% is running ESXi. Of that, we have 29% are using DRS. 14% are using NSX VXLAN. 14% are using that micro segmentation feature, and 0% are using other advanced services within the environment, which is about what we expect. I mean, we don't see much more from our customer base in terms of what's out there. There's the VMware suite is pretty broad, but what we have found is almost everyone fits into that very, very narrow band of VCF.
Yeah. which is why there's a great migration happening away from it because everyone's really being forced into VCF when they were perfectly happy with vSphere standard, most people, or enterprise. Um, and on that note, too, just while I'm on this slide, I'm going to go back actually because I think it's earlier. I really like to show the following two slides to kind of translate. Right, everyone's been living in the VMware world, so I find it's really helpful to say this is what we're talking about in terms of capabilities. HPE Morpheus Enterprise equals VMware VCF ARIA Tanzu Suite. HPE Morpheus VM Essentials, that's the vSphere standard and some Enterprise Plus functionality. The translation layer here is for those using the ESXi, boom, we've got a hypervisor for you. It's called HVM. And you follow it all the way up to an HVM cluster is an ESXi cluster, also known as a vSphere cluster. VM Essentials Manager is the vCenter equivalent. The VM Essentials software is the vSphere standard or enterprise equivalent. So it's a little we were like a little bit too close in some of our own definitions, but if that's our biggest crime was our naming conventions here, then I'm a happy camper. Um, the Morpheus Enterprise SKU, I want to point this out too. Morpheus was a automation platform first, and then they built in this hypervisor functionality. Everyone did it the other way around. So I think there's always been a lot of frustration with Aria and Tanzu and like $1 million plus in service hours just to get those installed and like working at all. That's why a lot of people never used them. Um, Morpheus Enterprise was built to be like a lot easier to get just put on your environment, just monitoring everything, and then you could build automation as needed. So their whole thing was abstract, monitor, uh, abstract, orchestrate, monitor, and then automate as you saw fit. So the if you're interested in the enterprise, I'm really not the guy for it. I can speak to it here and there, but there's a rep that I work with very closely that can do a much more robust presentation and jump into a demo with that. There's a million things to cover there. So um, wanted to put that out there though on this slide. And I think, people when they ask about the equivalency, I think this is really true to form without too much of an exception. We say it's approximate, but I mean, really anything you can do in your vSphere standard SKU today, you can do in VM Essentials.
That's awesome. This is a great slide. Sorry, I totally took you off track of your predestined course. So I guess it's demo time, right?
Yeah, we're demo ready now. So I'm gonna get out of this slideshow and get over to my demo, which might want me to re-log in, and it did it immediately, which is fantastic. Doke. So this is our GUI here. By the way, identical to Morpheus Enterprise. I'll start us off in clouds because this is where I think a lot of the magic happens in terms of reaching into your vCenter and getting visibility in the way that we're able to. With a cloud, you just think of it as all of your hosts that are running ESXi, they're in the VMware cloud. All of your hosts running HVM, the HPE hypervisor, they're in the Morpheus cloud. In this SKU, VM Essentials, we're just working with these two clouds. If you had the full enterprise SKU, you would have AWS, you would have Azure, GCP. There'd be a whole list of clouds that you could run here. And then there could be Nutanix and Proxmox and Hyper-V. Those would be their own cloud as well. The reason to call everything a cloud is not just to confuse people between like on-prem and off-prem resources. Like the whole thing for them is we're cloudifying, we're creating a cloud experience for your on-prem resources as well as your off-prem resources. When we are actually adding a cloud, it's pretty straightforward. It's vCenter. Let me pop in some credentials. We've really got to be version 7 plus to get a lot of the features. We could be technically 6 and up, but a lot of what you're going to see here today, we like to see 7.0 and above. And once you log in, you have the same UI experience that you're going to get with HVM essentially. So you've got this visibility into all of this. So I can actually click into a host. I don't know if it, you know, we have a very robust wiki. Like I said, we wanted to, Morpheus's mission was to homogenize things. So get things standard. And I mean, PE is kind of the devil in some ways, but gobble up companies and then like make them uniform and make it easy to manage. That's what they did. So like everything has a wiki. Um, the ability to discover VMs can be very helpful because we can actually get into that VM. We can console and do a VMware ESXi virtual machine. We get full access to it through this UI. So helpful for your day to day. You get a history. None of this is filled out because the demo environment is obviously just that, a demo environment. And we can't really break stuff and it resets every 2 hours, which by the way, if you really like this stuff and you're thinking, Liam, I kind of wanted to click around there, I can get you a demo voucher where you can hop onto this environment for a couple hours at a time and kind of kick the tires. I think that's a great way to get introduced. So just reach out separately to Ryan and we can see about doing that. So we get a summary, we get some monitoring. It's people say this is different from vCenter. Absolutely. We're not allowed to just copy vCenter's UI. So it is going to be a little bit different, but it's pretty intuitive. I think if I can do it, you can do it. We can do some management, like we can actually take some actions uh, when it comes to the VM itself. Um, we can also get back into compute over here. There's a lot of ways to see resources. So I can look at the cloud, I can click into the cloud and see all my vCenter machines running. I can also just look at all the hosts we've got running. So if I go into a host, I can do a very similar thing. I can get into the console. I can look at the history I have of any snapshots of the host itself. If we ran any, if anything was running, we'd see it here. When we look at the HVM, that'll be more clear. And right now I've just got discovered VMs. So what makes this really helpful though, I think is more the provisioning side, which we're going to jump into, and the migration side of things. We'll get to both of those. But just looking at our cluster, our HVM cluster, we can explore some of the vMotion, DRS. Actually, DRS we'll see more in provisioning as well. High availability components. So this one's got some more action happening. We can get a little dashboard on hosts here. Very much similar to what we saw with the ESXi host. Super similar, but it's a little bit more built out because things are hooked up obviously natively on the networking side to the manager. We can actually add routers and networks directly to this cluster, which I think is very helpful. You do the same with storage. So we can edit data stores, volumes, create an iSCSI target as well. Um, I think this component of it answers a lot of questions people have about hot swapping and resizing storage. Um, we also get a nice little list of virtual images on that host. But let's say we have to update a host, or let's say we just want to take one offline, and let's pretend this maybe happened unintentionally. Uh, when we enter maintenance mode, we're going to power this host off, and all of the workloads are going to migrate, and this host is going to be offline. That happens, like I said, automatically. When we leave maintenance mode, all of the workloads are going to come back automatically, which I think is a pretty important distinction. So when I say this product is on Rails, I mean, it's really designed so that you're not having to manually move stuff around. And we've got it set at that load balancing level of like 3. So you can also, so that's kind of the high availability side of things, what happens when a host goes down. And I'll actually leave maintenance and get this back. Well, with a VM, we call them instances because we can have one or multiple VMs within one instance, kind of group configure settings. With VM, we can do some resizing as well. So we can do some live resizing here. We can edit our plan. We do t-shirt sizing. All of this is amendable, by the way. But we can sort of hot swap the plan. We can mess with other storage sources for a VM, do that live, and reconfigure a network. live. So we can move that VM around and mess with its configuration, and that's sort of our vMotion equivalent there. I think what we can also look like in the provisioning side of things is how you can avoid ever really having to mess too much with the placement. Just because of that DRS component, we don't recommend ever hard pin. We'd much rather you use those affinity and anti-affinity groups. So this is what it looks like to provision. You're gonna actually, we don't have much else of a layout, but you can add those. Like I said, all of the t-shirt sizing that you see here is amendable, so you can create new plans, but we can select CPU and memory allocation. We've only got one resource pool, but we could have multiple clusters that this thing is going to, we could point it to a different cluster if we had a different cluster, and it would then be kind of balanced there at the point of provisioning. We can leave this on production. We can pull images too. So, automatically we're going to get a view of all of the QCOW2 and ISO images that we could use to actually provision here. So we'll select one, and then I really recommend not to ever really put anything on a specific host. If you need two VMs to never be on the same host, we are much more partial to the affinity group. So you can create an affinity group and pop that in here and say, we want these two VMs to always be buddy buddy, or we want these two VMs to always be separate. So that is really the only thing I would mess with here. We usually say, you don't want to shoot yourself in the foot and skip agent install or anything like that. For Windows, you might need to attach some drivers as well for Windows boxes. Windows and Linux obviously run fine. There's really not many other boxes to be running. Task, this we'll look at a little bit separately, but task, you can take a PowerShell bash script and actually put it in here at the point of provisioning. We have a sort of library where you can store those. And we do have a KVM snapshot, like native backup capability, which I do like. I do have clients that just kind of use this, and I don't know how, for some people they have a very robust backup strategy, for others not as much. So this might honestly work for your purposes if maybe your backup appliance isn't on our ISV list today. But for the purposes of this, we'll fly without a backup. So that's what it looks like to provision an HVM virtual machine. Provisioning that's right, you can provision a VMware, OVA, or excuse me, a VMDK machine as well, which is remarkably similar. So we're going to pretty much do everything the same. There's a couple things we don't click on as much. We still have those affinity group options, still t-shirt sizing, everything pretty set in stone here just because of the limitation of the environment. We're going to select one of these guys, which I think automatically is going to place us in the 4 gig. So sometimes the image that you select will require a certain amount of memory. Don't want to mess with anything here. Nested virtualization is, we have the ability to actually, you can deploy like a VM manager, for example. You could do the VM manager within within a vCenter VM. So that could be pretty interesting for testing purposes, because you can do a 60-day trial, download the ISO for the VME product, and actually run it in your ESXi vCenter environment. So pretty cool. You hit next, and this is going to provision to the VM where you're going to be consuming your VMware resources. So your day-to-day can stay very similar. You can do 90+% of what you're wanting to do on VMware within this dashboard. Just helps you get even more familiar, live out of one place. It's just more convenient. But perhaps more practically, what the vCenter hookup allows for, other than the visibility and the monitoring, which, yes, is helpful in its own right, I think is this migration component. So we can actually pull from a VMware cloud or your
So
vCenter.
before you move to migrations, we have a couple questions that I think are probably best answered before you jump into that next piece.
Let's do it.
So question number one is, can the VME, the HP VME GUI be hosted in the cloud?
I don't see why not. I think it can be. I don't know that you would want to, but it's not
But
taught at any on-prem hardware.
and it's not SaaS based, right? So it's
No.
wherever you want to load it.
Yeah.
Okay. Next question is, would some of this information be available in InfoSite?
The information I'm going through now.
The previous tabs when you were kind of going through the what you can see about the hosts.
They're wondering if there's like a place online to kind of see a walkthrough of that. Is that the question on the info
I'm
site?
not quite sure. Maybe a
I
little.
tell you what, there is. I think I'm picking up what they're putting down. There is a documentation, the pretty robust documentation that we have that will walk you through kind of the step by step. So like I've got the compatibility matrix pulled up here. I can just click into the documentation. I know I'm jumping around, guys, on the webinar, kind of playing it fast here, but we can, I mean, we have a whole setup guide here and pretty great documentation when it comes to pretty much everything. Operations, I think, should have there should be a section we can get into um, and look at what I was doing. So we can this is publicly available, this documentation. We can share this out and it'll walk through pretty much everything in the UI.
Yeah. Okay. So on the InfoSite questions, I think maybe what we'll do is we'll get back to you offline with deeper detail because I see your follow up. But it's based off of Liam. The end user wants to know if they have full access to InfoSite for SimpliVity, would they be able to have info for all their hosts there as well?
Okay,
So I think we can circle up offline and get that information out. Just want to be recognizing that we're coming up against time. So the next question is, what is the plan in the selections? Is that licensing or pricing based on physical CPU? So when you were provisioning machines, there was something called plan, and the end user wants to know what that's referring to.
Yeah. So just want to make sure we're talking about you're talking about this?
Yeah, that's the sizing.
Yeah.
So that's machine sizing. That comes with a preset thing, but you can also configure those.
Sorry if that wasn't clear. This is how much that VM is going to have in terms of memory and CPU allocation. So
that's what you as the end user are assigning to your host.
correct. Yeah.
All right. All right. With that, I think you can jump on.
Cool. Yeah, keep the questions coming too. Well, I know we're short on time, so maybe not. We had 10 minutes left, but I should be able to run through this pretty quickly. But this is people want to know about the migration. It's really, I think, where the rubber meets the road on all of this. As I was saying about vCenter, one of the more practical benefits is that because we can get in there, we can source and really inventory all the VMs that you have running in your vCenter environment. We can target the HVM cloud that we want to move them to. I specifically am going to move them to this one cluster that I have. We have a groups, by the way, are just kind of a folder system that you can logically coordinate and add resources to a group. So you could say group one, and my HVM group is going to have access to this cloud and these instances, these virtual machines. So I can select up to 20 VMs. There's really no sizing limit. takes more time depending on network capacity. And these are going to come offline. So you're going to need a maintenance window, which, just probably a weekend where you can say, hey, we're going to be taking these specific workloads down to do the migration. These are we're going to turn them off. We're going to copy them. We're going to convert them from the VMDK format they're in into a QCOW2 format. And then those are going to be stood up on the um, network and storage target that we assign here. So we assign this little landing zone. We don't want to skip anything. We hit complete. And then when you hit run, it's going to start the migration, and you'll just have kind of the status of these as they're migrating. And like I said, you do up to 20 at once. Um, this is how people are doing it. They're moving one host at a time. So they're saying they're getting into their vCenter, or if they have a 3 or 4 node cluster, they're saying, okay, I've got 3 vCenter hosts. I'm going to take one, I'm going to put it offline. I'm going to move all the workloads over from that one to the surviving 2. We're going to stand up Ubuntu, HVM, make an HPE host out of our third wheel here. And then we're going to create a 1 node cluster, essentially, that would be visible here. So you'd have your VM cluster, your HVM cluster, and there'd just be 1 host. And you could do the migration just like that. So target that HVM host for however many workloads are on one of the other VMware hosts, move them over, rinse and repeat until you've got 2, and you can do it with 1, and then you got a 3 node. So that's how the migration would look with this tool. There is another tool called River Meadow that we use for rapid migrations. Actually, AMPS on the HPE internal side has their own internal rapid migration tool. But the River Meadow tool allows for very large scale migrations with with live migrations, as live as it gets, where it's a very similar approach to Zerto, where you're doing a agent-based replication. Each VM has an agent on it, and it's moving piece by piece until eventually you hit the light switch and it just switches over with a minute or 2 at most of downtime per VM. And they can do that for thousands of VMs. So that option is here today. And then depending on your backup provider, there might be some migration options as well. So there's now a lot of paths to go down, where with Veeam, no promises, nothing yet, official, but the rapid restore tool could be a functionality that we see in a release where you're able to take that delta of downtime and move it over during that migration period. So I think Commvault, if you're a Commvault customer, there's also a couple ways you can do a migration with a backup restore. That's going to be what we see with Veeam as well. Any other questions you see, Ryan, that I could tackle? I can jump into some other stuff real quick too on the operations side.
Yeah, so we have about 5 minutes left. So definitely, if there's any questions out there, if anyone has something just on the tip of the brain that they want to know about, now's the time to ask. Kind of while we do that, maybe Liam, you can just keep kind of jumping around if you still have stuff to show us. But one of the things that we're seeing with a lot of customers is kind of exactly what Liam talked about in the beginning of the session, that the overall people are having a tough time getting quotes, and when they do get quotes, they have very little time to react. So I recommend, if you are looking at other options, to start having active conversations much farther out, because getting renewal quotes has been tough, and when those renewal quotes do come, they are high, and they leave you in kind of a ransom scenario where you don't have a choice. Now, the great thing about the HPE VME solution with using Morpheus Enterprises, you can kind of manage your workloads across the other platforms, right? So if you are in that ransom scenario where you have to go to, adding one more year, you're able to actually transition to that platform and then, do migrations on your schedule, not on VMware's. But it's definitely a conversation you want to start having now, because our customers who have larger VM estates, where they're moving, hundreds or thousands of virtual machines, some of that takes time and planning, and we want to make sure that we're leaving enough room on the runway to make sure that you and your teams are successful in those migrations. But it doesn't look like we have any other questions. So with that, Liam, is there anything you want to add in closing before we wrap up?
Yeah, I'd like to say, kind of on that note, Ryan, be thinking too about what does testing look like for you? What does it look like to evaluate a new hypervisor? I ask a lot of people that question, and surprising the amount of times they're like, you know what? Well, it's a good point. We haven't really thought about what the testing might look like. Like, how are you envisioning a proof of concept? Hypervisors are very important. You want to make sure that you're comfortable with it. So give yourself enough time. It takes for any new hypervisor, getting familiar with it takes some time. And then if you want to run stuff as well, I think having 60 days at least to evaluate one or multiple hypervisors is smart. And then actually making the decision, probably going to take some time, and then moving things over. So if you're a year out from your renewal, you're actually in a pretty perfect time to start thinking about it. 12 months is in no way plenty of time. Like, I mean, it's really bumping up against, maybe the time frame I see most customers using. And the ones that really are having the easiest time are saying, let's kick the tires now with as much stuff as we can, see what works, see what we're waiting on. And yeah, I just say get ahead of it, because it seems to only be getting worse from the Broadcom VMware side of the house.
All right. Well, thank you for that, Liam. We are at the top of the hour, so or the next hour, I should say. So, Ryan and I would like to thank you very much for the presentation and demonstration of HPE Morpheus VM Essentials platform. We'd also like to thank everyone who's joined today. We hope you found the information insightful for determining your alternatives to VMware. You can visit vandis.com/events for information on our next event in the VMware Alternative Series, as well as other events that you might be interested in. Also, as Liam mentioned, he did offer out a demo voucher. If that is of interest, you can reach out to your account manager or to me or Ryan, and we will get that information for you through Liam. And lastly, if you do have any additional questions, you again could reach out to us or info@vandis.com. And thank you so much for attending today. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.